Welcome everyone to another JB&A webinar. I'm here with three folks from SNS, Studio Network Solutions. And the first one is John Deal, their Director of Sales. I'm also here with Steve McKenna, Sales Manager, and Caspian Brands, Product Manager. And they are going to present to us the workflow-defined shared storage. So thanks. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you guys.
So Studio Network Solutions, you guys, we've been doing shared storage for a very long time now, and our new ShareBrowser software that comes with our storage at no per seat license fees has really kind of changed the way a lot of people can work and really kept it makes everything much easier to use to interact with your storage and have control of kind of everything all at once. So as we go in here, there's a few problems you run into. Ooh, too far. A few problems you run into in the shared storage world. First and foremost, there's a lot of people making shared storage these days. Some of them are very specific. And so what happens is there are storages that get very specific to very specific production applications. We don't have kind of a one-stop shop that fits every production application that's out there. Well, with SNS, we do. We provide workflow tools for every popular NLE, including obviously Apple Final Cut, Adobe, the entire Adobe suite of products, as well as Avid out there. So the nice thing with EVO here is you can get into whatever the customer's environment might be. The EVO is going to have a workflow for them. And then in addition to that, we've built in other workflow tools like our really easy to use asset management. So what happens after customers generally get shared storage is they fill it up. And it becomes quite a challenge to find everything that's on the storage. So with our index and search and comment and tagging features, we make it very easy to keep all of your assets organized in one spot and get to them so that we can get to work as quickly as possible as an editor. So here we go. We can play again with every major NLE. Pretty much every software that's out there will have some workflow for to get into. EVO is very, very flexible. And again, we come with this asset management and additional workflow tools, and we have no per seat license fees on any of our software. So if you have our server and you want to add users in the future, whether it be to be scalable and future resistant from that standpoint, or just not worrying about annual subscription fees and things like that to software, we don't do that to you. If you have our hardware, you get our software. So who kind of is the SNS customer? Really anyone creating video in any form or fashion could benefit from having an EVO in their house, whether it be, as you see with Pro Tools, whether it be color correction, even live event with TriCaster, we can capture all 8 ISOs off of a TriCaster, have those turned immediately to edit so that you can actually be editing, tagging, logging files as the stream comes in. So you don't have to sit there and offload things from one drive to another or take it back to the office from a shared storage environment. You can just travel around with the EVO and basically extend the recording life of the TriCaster as well as bring in RAID protection. And then we'll get into some of the application-specific workflows we have here in just a bit during our live demo. So these are the things, some of our key features that really set us apart in the storage space. Again, we have that embedded asset management, so you're going to be able to search not only the files and assets that live on our storage, but anything else on the network that's been indexed. So you can use third-party, whether you've got third-party drives floating around, like some direct attached RAIDs that that a customer may have been using before they went to the shared storage tier, whether it be older legacy shared storage that, maybe it was just a simple NAS box that was being reshared. The EVO will be able to index that, make the files on it searchable, and allow you to tag and comment against those files. So you can manage multiple tiers of storage from within our user interface. In addition, we'll be able to provide true collaboration for really any of the NLEs we've mentioned before. So whether that be in the Premiere world with some of our Adobe project locking, that again we'll show you here in a second. In the Avid world, whether it be if it's project and bin sharing, we can emulate the Avid file system to give you that native collaborative workflow for Media Composer. And then obviously with Final Cut 10 as well, there are some unique challenges that provides, and we can't allow for shared source material and things like that to work in the Final Cut environments. Another key feature and something particularly unique to SNS is the ability to verify file transfers. So usually when customers want to ingest material or move a file from one place to another, or maybe onto an external drive for delivery to a client, they do a drag and drop. And there is no inherent verification step that's performed, so you can corrupt those files on copy. With our ShareBrowser interface, you'll be able to generate MD5 logs as well as paste and verify to make sure you don't have any nasty surprises or propagating any silent corruption across your network from a bad copy. EVO is incredibly scalable, whether it be from a direct connect from a port count standpoint or whether it be from an overall storage standpoint. You can start with as little as 4 terabytes and grow into the hundreds of terabytes and the petabytes as the need arises. So EVO is a great place to start, has some great entry-level price points, and no matter what the customer winds up needing in the future, EVO can grow right alongside with them, as opposed to having to, oh no, you've crossed this threshold, we have to throw out that old storage and get new stuff. You don't have to do that with EVO, which provides, again, both an enhanced return on investment, not only for the EVO purchase, but for any legacy storage you have that we can help you manage and come around with. So with that, we're going to kind of jump into our live demo environment here. I know there's a bit of a lag, so we'll give it just a second. What we should be seeing here in just a second is 2 screens, one left, one right. These are 2 different workstations. Our Demo 1 workstation and our Demo 2 workstation here, and this is our ShareBrowser interface. Laura, just as a verification, do you see the 2 screens at this point? So make sure everyone's caught up.
You bet.
Perfect. So what we see here, guys, is the ShareBrowser interface. So historically, if you're connecting to shared storage, you're connecting, whether it be a SAN protocol or a NAS protocol, you're either connecting through a software, right? The whole purpose of like a mount utility software would be to then mount that drive onto your desktop. So it would show up here, and then if we wanted to deal with the file structure, we'd open a Finder window or a Windows Explorer window, and we would be able to see the files and then manipulate them. In addition, if we were connecting over NAS or any other kind of protocol, we would have to do a connect to server, right, and credential ourselves in each time. And again, all that does is put this drive up on our desktop so that we can access it and we can open a Finder window to manipulate it. So this can be particularly challenging when we're dealing with multiple shares or with large amounts of files, because I don't have the ability necessarily to search this with Spotlight or anything like that. And again, there's just a lot. And if I have to have multiple shares, I'm opening multiple windows. So my desktop can get, well, as you can see, pretty cluttered pretty quickly. So what we've done with the ShareBrowser is really tried to give you one central interface to manage all of that stuff, so that all you have to open is our ShareBrowser and your production application and get to work. Try to keep everything really clean. So when we come into the ShareBrowser, you log in, and on the left-hand side, you'll be granted access to all of the shares you have permission to see. EVO can get pretty granular with its permissions, so if we don't want the graphics department to see what the video department is doing, for instance, they don't have to. And then we can jump around. So let's just walk around the interface here a little bit. On the left-hand side, we have all of the volumes you have access to, and you can sort those. Notice right now I'm only seeing volumes that are on EVO, but if I wanted to see all volumes on the network that we could control, I can even see local drives and manage those from here, or any other third-party storage, for that matter, that might be presenting on the network. For now, however, we're going to be interested mostly in the EVO drive, so let's stick with that. So directly from the drive list, I can mount, I can unmount from here. I can see what's mounted via the green light, what's been set up. When I do go to mount, notice I have multiple protocol options. So I can mount the same thing over AFP for Mac environments, whereas a Windows machine might want to mount it over SMB. Obviously, we can mount as the Avid file system as well, and we'll get into that in a little more detail here in just a bit. So pretty straightforward. Once I select the volume, I have the file structure of that volume here in the center pane. And I can manipulate the file structure here. I can drag and drop files should I need to. Again, wouldn't recommend that. Would recommend using our paste and verify command, which we can show you here. But once I see the file, if it is a source material file and it's visible, whether it be from Quick Look or like Windows Media Player for preview, I have the full res preview here in the upper right. I can watch the file, see what's going on. And then I can add tags and comments. Our tagging section is right here. This is a comma separated value tag, so you can tag entire phrases. It doesn't just have to be a single word. As we see here, this is the Museum of Flight, which happens to be in Seattle, comma, and then I can hit save. And now I can search against any of these tags or comments as well. So if I wanted to come back up to the search result here, I can do a quick search for Seattle, and there we go. There's my file. So a couple of cool things with the asset management that kind of let it stand apart. This is directly embedded onto our storage or integrated with our storage. We developed it. It's our software. So what that gives it the ability to do is to act upon the storage. With a lot of other asset management softwares, what they can do is they're a standalone software and they can find the file and maintain their database, but they give you a file path back. So you get something like, oh, it's on the Adobe volume, it's in this folder, it's in this subfolder, and then as an editor, you have to follow that path to go find your file. With the EVO, we don't have to do that. If the volume is not mounted to the network, but it's available, it just hasn't been put on the desktop yet, I can right-click and mount directly from the search result. So in this case, the volume's online, so I don't have to worry about it. And then I can also say, hey, take me to the file. So no more following long strings of slashes. And it'll take me there no matter how many folders or subfolders deep. In addition to having tags, so kind of keyword search for the tagging stuff, we also have a free-form text field for comments that people can use, whether it be for log notes or task management. I've got a lot of customers using this in many different ways. So we can do things like perhaps this file is ready for approval. And now if I'm a producer, I can come in and I just do a search for ready for approval, and that'll provide me my task list for the day. And I can do a search, I find that same file. I can watch it here, or I can open it in its NLE or in a preview software, and then I can leave notes back against it. Maybe I don't like the transition at 1:15. Now, as an editor, I know, okay, that wasn't approved. Maybe I lead it with denied, and I can do a search for denied. Now I know exactly what I need to fix. Now, some people are using this again as log notes, so maybe it's something like watch for sound hit at 1:15. Then, as an editor, I know to take my headphones off at 1:15, so I don't nothing breaks my hearing. So there's a couple of different ways to utilize the asset management, but again, we're searching across not just the EVO storage, but any other storage on the network. And then we also have these filters up here that can help to limit the search results. So maybe I don't want to search across internally connected drives, or maybe I don't want to search across offline drives. And it's important to understand too, the offline drives don't need to be just not mounted to the network, but they can be physically disconnected from the network. So if you have any clients or any post houses you know of that have a closet full of old drives that they use as kind of masters or backup, those can be plugged into a workstation one time, indexed by the EVO, and then EVO will remember what's on them. So even though the drive is no longer physically connected to the network, I can still search it. I can still search it across the tags, and I can still search all the comments. So the metadata is still there. That database does live online. And then if I want to filter the search results, maybe I only want to look at human-entered metadata. So I only want to search by tags. I don't want to find anything, if we search for NASA, for instance. NASA's in the file name here, so maybe I don't want that. I just want to get those tags. I can do a tags-only search. Let's not actually group the results here. And just to show you how this might look a little differently too, we can surveillance file list. And we'll add NASA as a tag here. So now if we do that search for NASA, notice I have a key that's telling me where EVO is finding that metadata. So in this case, NASA was in the file name, or NASA was in the folder name. In this case, it was in the tag. So this was human-entered metadata. So I can quickly sort those search results to denote between whether it be file system metadata or human metadata or whatever. So I can, again, get to where I need to as quickly as humanly possible and then just get to work. The next problem we kind of run into here is delivery, and there's a lot of transition in file delivery right now as to how you get things to external clients. Some people will send memory cards. Some people will send external drives. Some people will want to use cloud services. For those people on the cloud side, again, we want ShareBrowser to be a one-stop tool to allow you to kind of manage everything, and that leads us into our cloud integration. So we can expose the local sync folder of any of these popular cloud services here as a volume in the ShareBrowser, and things can be moved on to there for delivery to clients, and that's going to lead us into our data verification step here as well. But you can manage all of those assets, see what's been moved to the cloud, search, and go, oh, it's on the cloud volume, great, it's already been sent for delivery to the client. So that's all right there, and again, manageable right from the ShareBrowser interface. So the next thing is, yeah, how do we move files around the network? We can, whether it be ingesting through a card reader or an external drive that can also show up here in the ShareBrowser if it's mapped. Most people, again, will drag and drop, and that's not a very good idea. So with the EVO, I'm going to do a Command-C here, and just to show you what it looks like, we're going to do a right-click, but you can do this with a keystroke as well. Actually, let's throw it onto this volume. Notice I can set these things to be sticky, so I don't have to pick every time. I can say always mount as AFP, always mount as SMB, or allow anything else to go. So whatever I choose, we'll leave that open, though, for my demo environment. And now if I wanted to paste into here, instead of doing a straight Command-V, I'm going to do a Shift Command-V, and I'm going to paste and verify. And then we'll run that copy. I didn't get any nasty error messages, so the data is intact. That's running a one-time bit-for-bit verification. And then, so again, one of two outcomes is going to happen when I make that copy. I'm either going to get an error message or I'm not. And if I don't get an error message, I know there aren't any nasty surprises waiting for me as I get into my edit. And if I do get an error message, I can do one of two things. I can either recopy that file and hope I don't get an error message the second time, or I can take a look at the file and see what got corrupted, and if the part of the file that's been corrupted is not the part that I needed, maybe I just roll with that to keep it easy. Yeah, this is giving me a little headache here. There we go. So that's great for quick file moves and for one-time verification, but what if you want to have a client, if you want a nice, something that the client can check against or something that's a deliverable, and there are certain networks now that are actually requiring what's called an MD5 checksum log file as a verification tool to make sure they're not getting any nasty surprises. So what we can do with the EVO to help that is the checksum copy here. I'm just right-clicking on a file, and I can store MD5 sum to file, and that creates a little digital sidecar here in the same folder, a .md5, that can be moved around the network or out to the cloud with the deliverable so that the client can check against that MD5 on the other end. Or if you're dealing with an internal client who's also working with the ShareBrowser software, I can actually verify right from here as well. Verify MD5 sum from file. Hopefully I get a successful. And I did, so I know that that file is intact, and I don't have too much to worry about from that standpoint. So there's the verification piece. On to the more application-specific workflows. So with each application, each production application that we deal with, each one presents its own unique challenges. Adobe is gaining in popularity over the last 2 or 3 years. In droves. But Adobe, much like Final Cut 7, has some limitations on a network in that it's not inherently network aware. And what that really means to an editor and to your clients is that 2 people can open the same project file at the same time in a wide open permission space. And only one of them will get to save, and they won't find out who until tomorrow, which is a horrible time to find out that we lost yesterday, right? So with the EVO, we've got an auto permissions management and a file and a project locking mode for these shares that prevents exactly that from happening. So if I want to double click on a Premiere file here and open it, we all know what Premiere looks like, so we can skip that part, I get a green right lock. Everyone else using this share on the network, back, make sure we close Premiere here in just a second. it's a grayed out write lock. So I can see that demo 1 is currently using this file, right? Now with some file lock solutions or project lock solutions, this is the end of my day. It's locked, I can't have it. With EVO, we do support the read-only mode. So I can open the file, it'll give me a warning, and it'll say, you're going to get this in read-only. Is that okay? If I say yes, the file will open. I'll see all the changes that were made up until the moment I opened the file. And then if I try to do a Command-S, it's going to give me an error and say, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do a save as, so you don't overwrite the first editor's work. So we're protected. And one of the things that's really, really cool here and very unique to the EVO is we do this at the file system level. So while there are other some software-based, some hardware-based solutions out there that claim Adobe project locking, they do it as a trick of their UI. It doesn't happen at the file system level. So if someone were to accidentally use the Finder to open a file, they would not be protected and would still be able to overwrite someone else's work. That is not true of the EVO at all. No matter where you open the file from, if it's locked, you are protected and you'll be defaulted off to a save as long as the locking mode is engaged. So the only time this is a particularly handy feature for producers to log in over the top of editors and see what's going on, what they've done. Then they can leave those log notes back in the comments field. So this couples very well with our easy-to-use asset management. This is also great for a second editor, an assistant editor, maybe to come in and do an intro, outro off of a preset timeline or something like that, or an alternative cut for producer review. Whatever. It just keeps everything moving more quickly. I don't have to have someone release that file. I can go in, I can save off a new version and get to work. And it eliminates the human error element. There are people I've talked to that, oh, we've got 4 guys, so we all know that, what everyone's doing, but it only takes one time to lose a day's worth of work to really cost us time or deadline or money. This eliminates the human error element. So that's kind of nice as well. Let the computer protect you. That's what it's for. So obviously the only time this might become a problem, go ahead and kill Premiere here real quick. The only time this might be a problem is if someone got into your file before you did. Maybe the producer got in first and they were looking, and you're the editor, you want to sit down and you want to get to work and have write permission. You don't need to create a new version of your file just because they're reviewing it. Not a problem with the EVO at all. We can right-click on that file. Let me get out of there real quick. Sorry guys, mouse is being a little finicky. Right-click, and then I can actually request an unlock. And what will happen there is I'll get a pop-up here on the left-hand side. Tells me who wants my file. If I say yes, the lock will drop over here, and I can open it with write permission. And if I were to say no, let's go ahead and open a file here real quick. Back into the Adobe Share. We'll get our pop-up, and if I were to say no, I'll get a pop-up back on the other side. It says they denied your request, not right now, I'm busy, and we'll have to find some other way to fight about write permission. So I want you guys to know too, this is not unique or limited to Premiere projects. We can lock any file by its extension, so as long as the software uses a single file object. The same locking mechanism would work whether it be for After Effects, Sony Vegas, whatever you want to do. It can even be beneficial for some network-aware softwares, just to give you that visibility before you actually open the software that you can't get into your file. So very handy tool to have, a lot of protection there. I'm going to pivot very briefly back to the asset management piece too, because some people like to use the native asset management of their application. Avid obviously has its way of doing things, and usually people just stay within Media Composer on the Avid side, and we just provide them that Avid emulated space. We do provide that project and bin sharing at about 25 to 50% of the cost of a comparable Avid solution. The other thing we can do here is we can actually export anything you've tagged or commented on in the ShareBrowser asset management, and you can take it out to the native asset management of the application. So FCP7 XML is what Premiere would use. Obviously a legacy Final Cut as well. Final Cut 10 XML is exactly that for Final Cut 10. Or if you have to go out to if you've got a bigger asset manager that's being used maybe company-wide or anything like that. Maybe you got a CatDV or something like that. You can export there. So your metadata is not stuck within the share browser. You can export it. You can bring it into other softwares. This gives you a nice scale-up path over time. So again, not only can EVO scale via its number of ports, but also into other softwares and things like that. We don't like to lock you in. We like to keep things as open as humanly possible. On the Avid side, again, we're going to mount a space as Avid, as the Avid file system, and then Media Composer, that's going to unlock what's coded into Media Composer as the native, the traditional Avid, what we think of as the Avid workflow with project and bin sharing and all of that. So any of you guys who have ever deployed a Unity or an ISIS or anything like that, you can see here the Avid file structure is just written in. This provides us the bin and project sharing. You can see the .ltk file for the bin locks. And that's there. So the Avid emulation is fully functional to get you in. On the FCP10 side, FCP10 obviously is network aware. It's database driven and has the limitation of a single instance of a library being open on the network. With a Final Cut share, EVO can allow the alias file to be built between events folders and libraries, so everyone on the network can collaborate on the same source material without any issue. And there's a few different workflows that can accomplish that, and we certainly welcome any questions about it, or if you'd like to give us a call, come see us at NAB, that kind of stuff. Feel free to reach out. So that's kind of a quick 30,000-foot overview of the EVO. Caspian, are you there? Did I miss anything?
I mean, yeah, that's the key that the approach that we've taken is rather than having, Stephen mentioned earlier, separate client connection manager, and some people even try and use Spotlight on the Mac to try and search for things, but it's not network aware. We're giving you the simplicity of Spotlight in a cross-platform environment, so it's Mac and Windows, but putting it into a central shared database so that everybody can access and see things. So it doesn't require a lot of training. People out of the box, they get their shared storage. Everybody needs some level of asset management, and that basic level of asset management that everybody needs is the ability to index, search, and tag. You get all that with EVO, out of the box, no extra cost. And as Stephen was showing earlier about exporting XML, if you've got if you want to get into more advanced kind of, automated systems or customized views such that CatDV provides, you can get the data from ShareBrowser out into CatDV. Some customers actually even use both side by side, right? They might have, because ShareBrowser functions at the file system level and is native code in the OS, giving us control over permissions for Premiere projects, or emulating the Avid file system, or storing Final Cut 10 libraries directly on NAS shares. You get the quick search mechanisms and the tagging mechanisms in our software, as well as the XML export capabilities to work with other tools, right? So even like tags and comments that you add into ShareBrowser to import that XML, into Premiere, your tags get mapped to the description field in Premiere, and your comments get mapped to log notes. So that also allows, easy use for, interns or somebody to come in and tag and comment on a large catalog of B-roll, right? So that everybody else can then more easily find, B-roll footage to bring into their projects. A lot of people still, even with asset management, still tend to kind of do a lot inside of the NLE. So after finding things in the Finder, bring them into the NLE. So we're giving you more symmetry between an interface that feels like the Finder on the Mac or Explorer on Windows without having to juggle a bunch of windows and get lost in a messy desktop.
Right. So the quick review, guys.
The easier, right? So.
Right. So as a quick review, guys, yeah, EVO can be, it allows file level access. We can collaborate, provide collaborative workflows for any of the major production applications that are out there on the market today. And we can certainly scale to ridiculous sizes, anywhere from 4 terabytes, again, all the way up into the petabytes, and ridiculously high port count as well. On port density, we can do up to 28 direct connect 1 gigabit Ethernet ports on a 16-base server. We also have 8-base servers and 4-base servers to really hit any price point in any niche of the market that's out there. So we have a solution that fits pretty much anybody's budget, going forward.
Okay.
We've been around for a very long time. This slide's a little out of date. We're actually 17 years old now, voting next year, looking forward to it. 50,000 customers worldwide. EVO is deployed in 45 different countries across the globe. So it's a very well-known solution. It's an accepted solution, and it's certainly tested throughout the industry on a global scale. And we tend to be, with all the feature set and additional workflow tools we bring in, we are by far the richest video-specific server on the market, and one of the most cost-effective as well, with 24 terabytes starting for as little as 12 grand, and solutions starting under $5,000 to get in and get the EVO workflow and be able to manage that third-party storage. Again, we can really fit anybody's budget, anybody's need, and try to get there. So at this point, here are some of our customers. I'm sure you're familiar with many of them. But I'd like to open it up for the Q&A session at this point too. So if you guys want to start funneling in those questions, we'll be more than happy to answer anything that you've got going.
All right, perfect. This is Laura again, and we do have a few questions coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and just start reading them off, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, so the first one I'm looking at here, how do you manage multiple write users to a SAN volume?
So for SAN volumes, with SAN&P that comes with EVO, SAN&P is a volume level locked solution. So that's great for like image sequence work, color grading work, where you need the high performance, the high IOPS. A lot of what we've been doing over the last couple of years has been bolstering the NAS side of the EVO. So a lot of the file locked workflows now we're all handling over NAS protocols, and our NAS performance is pretty much on par with SAN performance for the majority of the codecs in use. A lot of stuff's all compressed now. I mean, even red raw is compressed, right? Really the things that are the most demanding are your DPX image sequences for color grading type stuff. We're also open enough, and we have a number of customers that will deploy, say, XSAN or StoreNext on top of the EVO for either XSAN built into the Mac OS or using conventional, StoreNext metadata controllers with, EVO as high performance storage for production work groups where we can actually do it over iSCSI as well, right? So you can have 1 gig or 10 gig iSCSI connections to a StoreNext-based file system without having to go through some sort of limited gateway server that might not provide the performance that you would have over fiber or through a network share. So we can give you direct access to the file system over a gigabit Ethernet or 10 gig Ethernet using iSCSI.
Okay. Next question, does the tag update the metadata of the file, or is it just for search values for the ShareBrowser?
Tags are stored in our database, so it's not destructively changing the file itself. This is similar to how things like CatDB work, where the user entered metadata is stored in a database referencing the file paths where they exist. So if you move a file or you copy a file within ShareBrowser, the tags also get, or the comments also get copied along with it.
Okay, great. So next one, just to be sure, project locking can also manage a read-only environment where another editor can access the project but not save the original project, save their own copy of the project. Does that make sense, that question?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like if you have, so we do give the option in the security modes of EVO, say if you have, to a network share to one of our NAS volumes with our project locking security mode enabled. If you have read-only access to the share, then there is no, place to write back. But if everybody has, the whole purpose of the project locking is to give a, oftentimes people that are trying to do their own NAS solutions, heck, even with a lot of XAN environments, people get put off by trying to manage file permissions all the time. So they'll do like a chmod 777 and just leave it a free-for-all. And that free-for-all security permission is where the risk is, because there's nothing to control, who saves when, and that's when you get the risk of somebody overwriting somebody else. And then if you try and lock down permissions, then it becomes too cumbersome for the editors, and they're constantly having to call IT, and it just becomes a big mess. So with our project locking function, the administrator specifies which types of files will be automatically protected. So in that share, QuickTime movies would be left alone. Just the Premiere project files would be automatically locked, as an example, or After Effects files, or Final Cut 7, even Pro Tools. You could actually lock a QuickTime movie file if you want, if you just apply the extension. But it's user-driven, so first person to open it can write. Anybody afterwards can read, and then save as back to the same folder structure. So if you restrict somebody to only have read access to where those projects live, and they open that, then they would have to save as to some other share that they would have write access to, which you can also do. That just is kind of more cumbersome approach, which isn't often deployed in our customer base. The concept is to give everybody write access to the same workspace, but protect the project files, because those are the most critical thing. Premiere manages writing its own, render files and QuickTime movies. When we're doing file-based ingest, the file's already written. We're just copying it to the storage. So we're not destructively editing our video. It's the project file that's always changing.
Okay.
And additional renders and exports associated with it.
Okay,
not sure if that clearly answers the question.
Yes, I think it did. They replied back and said, makes sense. So,
cool.
Does EVO support fiber?
Yes. Yeah, we can do fiber channel for SAN protocols, whether that's with volume lock SAN-MP or using XSAN or StoreNext. We also can do 10 gig Ethernet over copper or fiber optic. So 10 gigabit Ethernet over fiber optic uses the same cable as fiber channel uses. They're just different transmitters and receivers.
Okay.
So we also actually have a fiber channel to iSCSI bridge functionality built into EVO. So let's say you've got some legacy SATA to fiber RAIDs. We could bridge that storage through EVO so that it could be visible by, say, a laptop with 1 gig.
Okay, perfect. And you may have already gone over this one, but they're asking, will it manage, or will it index/manage meta info for Avid native files, those long file named assets?
At the moment, we're not doing anything specific as far as looking into the Avid media databases. What we're, our indexing, I can most liken it to Spotlight, except ours isn't broken in network, right? If you try to use Spotlight in a network, A, it's Mac only. B, it cripples your network. Our version is we're indexing the file system, so just the file system name, location, path, size, and harvesting the basic file system metadata about it, and then enabling you to search against that, add your own custom tags and comments to better search and find the material. As the product evolves, it is called EVO, You'll see, more, improvements for different media types, down the road, whether that's, for MXF files or more granularity of red raw files and some of the various other formats that arise. It seems like we get new codecs and new file types every year. Somebody else, all of a sudden Blackmagic makes the camera. All of a sudden Naja's making the camera.
Yeah.
I'd say every year is a pretty conservative number. I mean, I feel like I get them every week.
All right, perfect. Let's see. So does it easily migrate media on and off the high-speed shared storage?
So we can keep track of that inside of ShareBrowser, and as Stephen mentioned, with the verification tools, we can ensure that things are copied in a more stable fashion. You can still use the Finder or Explorer to drag and drop things and index it after the fact, or you can use our verification tools. Doing a verification does take longer, but it also is more secure, and it also puts the files in a more linear movement on disk. If you use something like the Finder, it's kind of more of like a hurricane approach or a tornado approach to transferring the files. It's a bit chaotic, whereas using ShareBrowser to transfer files does it in a more kind of a linear fashion on the file system, so that things aren't instantly scattered, which is what happens when you use the Finder or Explorer to do a copy.
So what you're saying is it's more like hiring a moving company rather than walking into your backyard after Hurricane Andrew.
Sure.
Tough move.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about TriCaster integration? This question's just TriCaster integration? Question mark.
Yeah. So if depending on what kind of TriCaster you have and how you're using your Ethernet ports, we can use the Ethernet ports of the TriCaster and use, connect to the EVO, and the EVO can be used to store rate-protected ISO records. Again, you can get up to all 8 ISOs recorded, off of the TriCaster into the EVO, so they're instantly available to, say, an edit team to kind of do cleanup. You can also have share from the EVO presented to the TriCaster for any kind of like DDR, graphics effects, and stuff like that. So you can have a graphics team collaborating on the EVO, providing elements that, TriCaster then brings in part of its broadcast.
Okay.
So we're enabling external storage to the TriCaster that it can see natively.
Okay, perfect. Looks like last question, are there any drawbacks to using EVO as your CatDV server versus a dedicated server?
Yeah, I mean, CatDV server on the EVO is kind of, there's some kind of limitations in support of what CatDV server does under Linux, and EVO's running on Linux, and there's only so much exposure to the Linux OS that we grant you without running the risk of you torpedoing its stability. CatDV server on EVO is kind of best done as far as like a work group installation. If you're doing enterprise and worker node licenses, you're doing a big, kind of automated system, it's really, ideal to just have the CatDV server kind of running on its own box, so that any administration or restarts of the CatDV server don't require you to restart your shared storage at the same time. So it really depends on, the customer's needs, how much availability they need across the systems, whether it's a smaller work group or a larger distributed installation.
All
right, perfect. Thanks so much, guys. Anything else you want to add? Looks like, yes, NAB coming soon.
We're what, 3 weeks out from NAB now? I know
Yeah.
Some of us are excited, some of us are scared to death. All of that. But
Exactly.
JB&A will certainly be having an event for the Saturday and Sunday before the show starts over at the Westin Hotel,
Yes.
which we'll be attending with a lot of our technology partners and things like that. We highly recommend you come, and we would love to see you at our booth as well. And we have
Absolutely.
many, so we went over a pretty rich feature set here today. I want to let you know we have a lot of really, really cool new stuff coming out as well. So I'm sure we'll be doing another one of these right after NAB to tell you all about it for those who couldn't make it. But if you want to see it firsthand, we have I'm privy to a few of them, and it's really cool. Yeah,
Awesome.
I can't tell you. Got to leave you wanting more. So look forward to seeing you at the show.
Yeah, and definitely come by the pre-NAB event, the JB&A event at the Westin the weekend before if you can make it, because you'll be able to also see SNS working in a workflow solution with some other products and ask questions about your own unique workflow issues. And yeah, it's going to be good. So thanks everybody. Thanks Caspian, John, and Stephen. And yeah, we'll see you at NAB.
Awesome.
You too. Thanks again.
Okay.
Have a great day,
everyone.
guys.
Bye-bye.